There was a time when these cars were simply part of everyday Britain. They sat outside terraced homes, carried families to the seaside, and waited patiently in supermarket car parks every weekend. Parents drove them to work. Young drivers learned behind their steering wheels. They weren't considered special, they were just ordinary cars living ordinary lives. No one imagined that, decades later, many of them would almost disappear. As newer models arrived, thousands were scrapped. Others were abandoned in damp garages or left to rust away in forgotten fields. Year after year, their numbers quietly faded. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. In 2026, not every classic British car costs a fortune. While famous models now sell for eye-watering prices, a handful of overlooked classics are still surprisingly affordable. They may need plenty of work, but they're real pieces of British motoring history that ordinary enthusiasts can still rescue before values climb even higher. And one car on today's list could soon become Britain's next restoration bargain. So before these forgotten classics become too expensive to own, let's count down 10 cheap British classic cars you can still restore in 2026. Number 10. Austin Allegro 1973. Our countdown begins with a car that spent decades being the butt of jokes, the Austin Allegro. When it first appeared in 1973, the Allegro was everywhere. Families drove them every day, commuters relied on them, and they became one of Britain's most familiar sights. It wasn't exciting, but it was practical, comfortable, and affordable. Then everything changed. People began criticizing its unusual styling, and before long, the Allegro became one of Britain's most mocked cars. Owners quietly moved on, and thousands ended up in scrapyard. Ironically, that's exactly what makes it interesting today. Because so many disappeared, finding a surviving Allegro has become surprisingly difficult. What was once ignored is now becoming a genuine piece of British history. The good news is that restoration projects are still reasonably priced. Most need rust repairs around the wheel arches, sills, and doors, but mechanically they're simple cars to work on. Specialist clubs continue to supply many of the parts, making restoration easier than many people expect. You probably won't make a fortune restoring one, but you'll be saving a forgotten chapter of Britain's automotive story before it disappears forever. Number 9. Morris Marina 1971. If you lived in Britain during the 1970s, chances are you saw Morris Marina almost every day. They were family cars, driving school cars, company cars, and even taxis. Wherever you looked, there seemed to be another Marina on the road. And that's exactly why so few remain. Because they were treated as ordinary transport, most were driven until they simply wore out. Very few people thought they were worth preserving. Today, surviving Marinas have become surprisingly rare. The best part? They're still among the most affordable British classics to restore. Rust underneath the car is usually the biggest challenge. But once that's repaired, the Marina's simple engineering makes it an ideal project for beginners. Owners often say that's where its charm really lies. No complicated electronics, no expensive technology, just honest British engineering that's easy to understand and rewarding to bring back to life. Restore one today, and you're not just rebuilding a car, you're bringing back a familiar face from Britain's past. Number 8. Triumph Dolomite 1972. Now we move to a car that offered something a little more sophisticated. The Triumph Dolomite combined elegance with performance in a way few family cars could match. It looked smart, felt refined, and gave drivers just enough sporting character to make every journey enjoyable. Then came the famous Dolomite Sprint. With its advanced 16-valve engine, it shocked the motoring world. At the time, very few production saloons offered that kind of technology. Suddenly, Triumph wasn't just building comfortable cars, it was building one of Britain's most advanced sports saloons. Owners loved the polished wood dashboard, comfortable seats, and confident handling. It felt expensive without carrying the price of a luxury executive car. Yet, despite all that, many Dolomites slowly disappeared as rust took its toll. Today, they remain one of Britain's best restoration bargains. Most projects need attention around the rear wheel arches, floor pans, and sills. But thanks to a passionate enthusiast community, replacement panels and mechanical parts are still widely available. And here's the surprising part. Every restored Dolomite helps preserve one of Britain's smartest and most underrated sporting classics. Number 7. MGB Midget 1961. Next is a car that proved you didn't need huge horsepower to have an unforgettable drive. The MGB Midget arrived in 1961 with a simple mission to make sports car ownership affordable for ordinary people. And it worked. Its lightweight body, open-top design, and nimble handling turned even the shortest journey into an adventure. Weekend drives through the countryside suddenly became something to look forward to, and thousands of young drivers fell in love with British sports cars because of the Midget. But as the years passed, many were neglected. Rust quietly attacked the floors, sills, and wheel arches, Some were left sitting in garages for decades, while others were broken for parts. For a while, it seemed the little MG might disappear for good. Thankfully, that's no longer the case. In 2026, the MG Midget remains one of the easiest British classics to restore. Mechanical parts are inexpensive, enthusiast support is excellent, and many repairs can even be completed at home. You won't need a huge workshop or a massive budget. What you will need is patience, and when the restoration is finished, you'll own one of Britain's most enjoyable little roadsters, a car that still puts a smile on people's faces more than 60 years later. Number 6. Rover SD1 1976. Now we come to a car that looked like it had arrived from the future. When the Rover SD1 was unveiled in 1976, it was unlike anything Britain had produced before. Its sleek hatchback shape looked bold and modern. Some people even compared its styling to expensive Italian sports cars. Inside, it offered generous space, comfortable seating, and in V8 form, performance that could genuinely surprise much more expensive cars. Executives proudly drove them. Police forces trusted them. For a moment, it looked as though Rover had built the perfect British executive car. But then reality caught up. Early build quality problems quickly damaged its reputation. Rust appeared sooner than expected, electrical faults frustrated owners, and many buyers lost confidence. Before long, values collapsed, thousands were scrapped. Ironically, that's exactly why the SD1 has become such an attractive restoration project today. Many examples can still be found at sensible prices. Most require rust repairs around the rear arches, sills, and suspension mounting points, while interior trim can sometimes take patience to locate. But restore one properly, and you'll own one of Britain's boldest automotive designs, a car that dared to look decades ahead of its time. Number 5. Austin-Healey Sprite 1958. At number 5 is one of the happiest looking cars Britain has ever built. The Austin-Healey Sprite instantly won hearts with its friendly appearance, especially the famous Frogi version with its distinctive round headlights. It wasn't the fastest sports car on the road. It wasn't the most luxurious either, but none of that mattered. The Sprite made driving fun. Its lightweight body, simple controls, and playful character transformed ordinary roads into exciting. It became the perfect first sports car for thousands of enthusiasts. Yet, despite its popularity, many Sprites slowly disappeared. Years of damp British weather took their toll. Rust attacked the chassis, sills, and lower bodywork, and countless cars were abandoned because repairs seemed too expensive. Today, that story is changing. Later Sprite models are still surprisingly affordable, making them one of the best value classic sports cars you can restore in 2026. Replacement parts are easy to find, the mechanical design is refreshingly simple, and the active enthusiast community means help is never far away. And here's the best part. Restoring a Sprite isn't just about rebuilding a classic car. It's about bringing back the joyful spirit of British motoring, a time when driving was less about speed and more about simply enjoying the journey. Number 4. Jaguar XJ6 Series 1 1968. At number 4 is a car many people still consider one of the greatest British luxury cars ever built.